And that's why you never try to steal eggs from a Craxian nest mother, Zexital concluded, his three eyes blinking in sequence as he downed another glass of fluorescent liquid. The gathered crowd at the Shattered Moon, arguably the most notorious mercenary bar in the Outer Rim, roared with laughter. Well, what passed for laughter among the dozen different species present? The Vordaxians clicked their mandibles, the Nerati whistled through their breathing tubes, and the lone Kularian in the corner did that weird thing where their skin rippled in amusement. I noticed a group of fresh-faced recruits at the next table, their brand-new combat suits still showing manufacturers' creases. They were checking their datapads, probably scrolling through contract listings. One of them, a young praxi with scales so bright they practically screamed, "Rookie," was pointing excitedly at something on the screen. "Hey, look at this one. Guard duty for a mining operation. Target, human settlement on... The words human settlement hadn't even finished leaving his mouth before my glass hit their table, splattering their datapads with premium Centaurian brandy. The rookies jumped, mandibles and tentacles twitching in surprise. "That," I growled, using all four of my arms to lean across their table, "would be your last mistake." My chromatophores shifted to a deep warning red, something I hadn't needed to do since the Proxima incident. The bar had gone quiet. Even the ancient ventilation system seemed to be holding its breath. "But they're just humans," the praxi protested, his scales dulling slightly. "Class 12 Deathworlders, sure, but we've got superior technology and..." The laugh that escaped me was perhaps a bit more unhinged than I intended. "Superior technology? Kid, let me tell you something about humans and their special forces." I pulled up a chair, my exoskeleton creaking from old battle wounds. 2 solar cycles ago, I led the most elite mercenary squad in 3 sectors, the Crimson Talons. Maybe you've heard of us. Their eye stalks twitched in recognition. Good. We had the best equipment credits could buy, plasma rifles from the hegemony's own armories, stealth suits that could fool a Zerillion sensor array, combat stims that could keep a juggernaut fighting for days. I paused, letting my outer membrane shift to the grey of bitter memories. "We don't exist anymore. Want to know why?" The rookies leaned forward, their various sensory organs fixed on me. Even some of the regular patrons shifted closer, though they tried to pretend they weren't listening. "We took a contract, simple thing really, disable a human special forces training facility during their rest cycle. In and out, they said. Easy credits, they said." I signaled the bartender for another round. "Let me tell you about the last mistake I ever made as a mercenary captain." The praxi's scales had faded to an almost ghostly white. Perfect. They were ready to hear the real story. The contract came through a reputable broker Nexus Operations. They had a perfect record for legitimate work. The client wanted us to hit a training facility on some backwater moon called T-7249. Simple smash and grab, get in, destroy their combat simulators, get out. The pay was... I wiggled my sensory appendages. Let's just say it was enough to retire on. The praxi rookie clicked his mandibles nervously. "So what went wrong?" "Wrong? Nothing went wrong at first. That's what makes it so funny, in a makes you want to molt prematurely kind of way." I took another sip. Our intel was pristine. Surveillance showed standard human special forces rotations, 20 instructors, 50 trainees. We watched them for 3 local cycles, mapped their patterns, even identified their weak spots. A bitter chuckle escaped my primary breathing vent. We had blueprints, security codes, patrol schedules, everything. Our tech specialist, Krex, even managed to tap into their communication networks. Humans are usually paranoid about security, but this place seemed sloppy. The bartender, an ancient Quillian with more scars than scales, stopped pretending not to listen and joined our little gathering. "Sloppy? Humans are never sloppy about security." "Exactly." I pointed one of my arms at him. But we were too busy counting our future credits to notice. We had a team of 12, the best in their fields. Krex could hack any system. Yix was our demo expert. She could disintegrate a fortress and leave the flowers standing. Zol and Vex were our twin Shadowkin snipers. They once took out an entire pirate crew through poisoned atmosphere from 2 kilometers away. The rookies were completely hooked now, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing with anticipation. The plan was beautiful. We'd hit during their rest cycle what humans call night. Krex would loop their security feeds. The Shadowkin twins would set up overlapping fields of fire. My strike team would breach through 3 points simultaneously. The humans would be in their sleep pods, never knowing what hit them. I let my outer membrane ripple with remembered confidence. We even had contingencies for their notorious endurance. Speed was key. Get in, plant charges, get out before they could organize a response. We knew they were tough, but we had better tech, better training, and the element of surprise. The first warning sign came during our final prep. Krex noticed their communications were too easy to intercept. The patrol patterns were too regular. But when you're staring at a pile of credits that big, I gestured emptily with 2 arms. One of the rookies, a Nexari with prismatic fins, spoke up. But humans are predictable, right? They need regular sleep cycles, regular meals. The bartender actually laughed at that one, a wheezing sound like grinding metal. Kid, the only predictable thing about humans is their unpredictability. But we thought the same thing. Even when our perimeter sensors showed irregular heat signatures, we wrote it off as wildlife. Even when our long-range scans detected odd energy fluctuations, we blamed it on equipment malfunction. My chromatophores shifted to embarrassed purple. The night of the operation, everything seemed perfect. Weather conditions optimal. No moon in the sky. Perfect for our thermal vision. The facility looked quiet, peaceful even. Just a few lights in the command center, exactly as expected. I drained my glass, letting the alcohol burn through my secondary stomach. We moved in at peak darkness, 3 teams, 12 of the best mercenaries money could buy, armed with enough firepower to level a small city. The perimeter defenses were exactly where the blueprint showed. The security codes worked perfectly. Even the door seals disengaged without a whisper. The Praxis scales had taken on a sickly green tinge. It was a trap, wasn't it? Oh, it was worse than a trap. My membrane went completely black, the color of genocidal stupidity. It was an evaluation. See, what we didn't know was that humans don't just train their special forces to fight, they train them to hunt, and I clicked my mandibles in grim amusement. We had just volunteered to be part of their advanced tactical response assessment. The first sign that everything had gone completely wrong, silence, pure absolute silence. No guards, no alarms, no sleeping humans in their bunks, just empty halls and dark rooms. I let my outer membrane ripple with remembered dread. Kex reported all systems normal. Vex and Zol had perfect sightlines from their sniper positions. My strike team reached the central training facility without encountering a single soul. That's when Yik said something that should have made us run. "Boss, where's the dust?" The rookies exchanged confused glances. The Praxis' mandibles twitched. Dust? A facility this size, even with regular cleaning, should have had some dust. Maintenance areas, storage rooms, ventilation ducts, something. But everything was pristine, like it had been cleaned. My voice dropped to a whisper, or like nothing had been there in the first place. That's when we heard it, a sound that still haunts my sleep cycle. Human laughter, not over the comms, not from a specific direction. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The bar had gone so quiet, you could hear the power cells humming in the walls. Yik spun around, plasma cutter raised, and that's when they took her. No shots fired, no warning. One moment she was there, the next, gone. Just gone, like she'd been erased from existence. We found her later unconscious, hanging upside down from a ceiling beam, her weapons dismantled and arranged in a neat pile below her. "Spread out," I ordered. Rookie mistake, the humans wanted us to spread out. They'd studied our tactics, knew our formations. We were playing their game and didn't even know it. I gestured to the bartender for another round. My hands were shaking slightly, not from the alcohol. Krex screamed over the comms, not in pain, in frustration. "The system's alive. They've been live the whole time. They let us see what they wanted us to see." Then his signal went dead. Through the security feeds we'd thought we'd hacked, we watched humans in full combat gear materialize out of supposedly solid walls. Their adaptive camouflage made our stealth suits look like festival costumes. "That's impossible," the Nexari rookie protested. "No camo system can—" "Impossible," I laughed. "Kid, the humans hadn't developed better camo tech than us. They'd developed better everything than us. Their suits could shift color and texture instantly, match any background perfectly, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was how they moved." My chromatophores shifted to deep blue, the color of professional admiration mixed with terror. Ever seen a razorcat hunt? How it seems to flow like liquid death. These humans moved like that, but better. They'd clearly studied every species on our team. They knew our blind spots, our reaction times, our physical limitations. Vex reported movement on his scope, fired a perfect shot at nothing. They'd learned how our snipers thought, used our own prediction algorithms against us. That's when the humans started hunting in earnest. They herded us like prey animals. Every route we took led exactly where they wanted us to go. When we tried to retreat, paths that had been clear were suddenly blocked, not by barriers, by humans who seemed to step out of the shadows themselves. They never used lethal force, which somehow made it worse. They were testing themselves against us, treating it like a training exercise. Zakral, our close combat specialist, actually managed to engage one of them. He was a master of 7 different martial arts forms, had once taken down a Crixian war beast with his bare hands. The human let him attack first, let him establish his rhythm, then I shuddered. Then what? The Praxi was practically vibrating with tension. Then the human matched him perfectly, countered every move like they'd rehearsed it 1,000 times. Turns out they had. They'd studied recordings of Zakral's fighting style, developed specific counters. When they finally took him down, it was with his own signature move. Within 5 minutes, they'd reduced our elite squad to a panicked, uncoordinated mess. They picked us off one by one, using our own tactics against us. Krex's hacking programs. They'd let them through, then used them to track our communications, our stealth tech. They could see right through it. Probably had been able to the whole time. The twins tried to provide covering fire for our retreat. The humans responded with their own snipers. Not to kill, they targeted pressure points, mobility joints in our armor. Surgical shots that shouldn't have been possible at those angles in those lighting conditions. We later learned they'd been practicing those exact shots for weeks, specifically preparing for our attack. I raised my glass, staring into the swirling liquid. When they finally took me down, it was almost a relief. A human appeared right in front of me, just materialized like some kind of ghost, tall, encased in that nightmare black armor. Know what they said to me? The rookies leaned forward as one. Thanks for the workout. Your team provided excellent training scenarios. Then something stung my neck and I woke up in a detention cell with the rest of my squad, all alive, all unharmed except for our pride, and a message waiting. Better luck next time. There wasn't a next time, was there? The Nexari asked quietly. With humans? No, the Crimson Talons disbanded after that. How could we continue? Every potential client had heard how 12 of the best mercenaries in the sector had been taken apart by humans who treated it as a training exercise. We'd become a cautionary tale. But that wasn't even the worst part, I continued, watching the rookies' expressions. The worst part was what happened when we tried to escape. The bartender snorted. You actually tried to run from human spec ops? Not our brightest moment, I admit, but we had our pride, what was left of it. We'd managed to regroup in a detention cell of all places. Our gear piled neatly outside like some kind of sick joke. No guards, no restraints, just an open door and our equipment practically gift-wrapped. The facility's hangar was right there, our ships untouched, everything screamed trap. But we figured we couldn't lose more dignity than we already had. We were wrong. So very wrong. My chromatophores flickered to the dull grey of remembered exhaustion. We made it to our ships, actually took off. That should have been our first clue. Humans never make things that easy. We broke atmosphere, hit our first jump point, and that's when the real training exercise began. The humans had planted tracking devices in our gear, microscopic ones, quantum-linked, totally undetectable. But that wasn't the clever part. The clever part was that they'd planted multiple trackers, each calibrated differently. When we eventually found one type and thought we were clean, another would still be working. We split up. Basic evasion tactics. Krex detected the first tracker within hours, and we thought we were so smart. Dumped our gear, bought new equipment. The humans kept coming. We'd jump to a new system, think we were safe, and then, that laugh again, always the laugh first. The Praxis scales had gone from sickly green to almost transparent. They were hunting you? For escaping? Hunting us? No, kid, they were training. We were just the lucky volunteer force. Each time they caught up, they'd demonstrate a new technique, a new technology, a new way of taking us down. And each time, they left us alive with our ships intact just to see if we'd learned anything. Yix cracked first, turned herself in at the nearest Federation outpost. Smart move, really. The humans picked up the rest of us on 6 different worlds, in 6 different ways. They caught Krex in a high-security data haven, walked right through their unbreakable defenses, found the twins on a stealth station hidden in an asteroid field. Nobody knows how. Me? I made it 3 weeks, abandoned my ship, bought passage on 6 different freighters, used every underground contact, every smuggler's trick I knew, ended up on a desert world. Figure no one could track me there. That's when I learned about human persistence hunting. The bar had grown so quiet you could hear the ice melting in glasses. They didn't use ships, didn't need to. 2 humans in their combat suits just walking, following my tracks across the desert. I had a vehicle, they were on foot. Didn't matter. They'd walk during the day when the heat was worse, never seemed to tire, never needed to rest, just this steady, relentless pace. I'd drive for hours, look back and see 2 black dots on the horizon, stop to refuel and they'd gain ground, try to sleep and wake up to find they'd covered impossible distances. The locals said they never stopped, never deviated, just walked, following my trail like it was painted in glowing paint. The psychological effect was devastating, knowing they were always behind you, always coming, never rushing, never hurrying, but never stopping either. I started seeing things, thinking every shadow was a human in camouflage. Every sound was that laugh. Zakral tried fighting them, actually managed to set up an ambush on a swamp world, covered his tracks perfectly, or so he thought, found high ground, prepared killing zones, everything by the book. The humans walked right into the trap, except they'd known about it the whole time, were recording his tactics for their training manuals. My hands shook as I poured another drink. They let him spring the ambush, let him think it had worked. Then they appeared behind him, tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Good try, but next time consider the thermal blooming of the local flora." Just like that, a combat tutorial in the middle of a life-or-death situation. The worst part, the absolute worst part, they were enjoying themselves. Not in a cruel way, they were genuinely having fun, treating it like some giant training game. Would leave notes critiquing our escape attempts. Good use of terrain masking, but consider alternative frequencies for comm silence. Innovative false trail, but watch your heat signature. By the end, we weren't even trying to escape, we were just trying to stay sane. The constant feeling of being watched, being evaluated, never knowing if that strange reflection was really a reflection, or if a human was about to step out of thin air and give you a graded assessment of your evasion techniques. When they finally caught me, I was almost grateful. I'd driven my vehicle into a canyon, thinking the ore deposits might mask my trail, parked in a cave, powered down everything, sat in total darkness for 6 hours. Then that voice came out of nowhere. "Interesting strategy? Unfortunately, we've been here for 2 days, testing new extreme environment protocols. Would you like to review your performance?" One of the rookies, the Nexari, shifted uncomfortably. "But why go through all that? Why not just detain you?" "Because that wasn't the point. The point was training. Their training, using us as live fire exercises. Every trick we tried, every tactic we used, became part of their combat database. They weren't just hunting us, they were learning from us, adapting our own species' techniques into their combat protocols. Those humans on foot in the desert, they were testing new heat regulation systems for their combat suits, the ones who caught Zakral. Testing stealth systems optimized for swamp environments. Every time we thought we'd found a way to beat them, we were actually helping them refine their methods." My chromatophores shifted to the deep purple of horrified respect. By the time they rounded up the last of us, they'd compiled enough tactical data to write 3 new training manuals. We thought we were running for our lives, really, we were just helping them become better hunters. The breaking point, I clicked my mandibles together, a nervous habit from my younger days. That came on Nexus 6, an abandoned mining world. The last 4 of us, me, Zakral, Vex, and Krex, had found each other again. Figured we'd make our last stand together. Stupid, really, should have kept running. We'd picked an old processing facility, defendable position, lots of cover, good sight lines, spent 3 days setting up kill zones, sensor nets, the works, even got our hands on some military-grade explosives. Thought maybe, just maybe, we could take a few humans with us. The first warning was the temperature drop, subtle at first, just a few degrees. Then our sensor net started failing, not all at once, just random glitches. Equipment that had worked perfectly for years suddenly giving ghost readings. Krex was monitoring the perimeter when he started laughing, not the crazy kind. the kind you laugh when you finally get the joke. "They're not coming," he said. "They're already here, have been for days." The rookies exchanged nervous glances as I continued. He was right. The humans had arrived before us, watched us set up our defenses, probably critiqued our techniques over coffee. That's a human stimulant drink that should be classified as a combat drug. They'd used our own sensor grid to study our patterns, our rotations. The actual assault? It was micrometaphors shifted through colors, trying to find the right shade for tactically beautiful horror. They took us apart like we were first-year cadets. Every defensive position we'd prepared became a trap for us. They herded us through our own kill zones, but never into the explosives. No, they had special plans for those. Zakral spotted movement, actual movement, not the decoys we'd been shooting at. Charged in with his monoblade. The human he attacked bent backwards at an angle that should have broken their spine. Let the blade pass over them, then just flowed around Zakral like water around a rock. 3 touches, just touches. And our close combat specialist was on the ground, his own blade at his throat. Vex had set up in what we thought was an unassailable position. Perfect overlapping fields of fire. The humans let him burn through his ammunition, shooting at shadows. Then one of them dropped from the ceiling, right behind him, tapped him on the shoulder and said, "You're getting better, but you really should watch your 6. Krex." I paused, draining my glass. Krex actually managed to impress them, had rigged the entire facility's systems into a death trap. Lights, atmosphere scrubbers, pressure doors, everything. The humans triggered it deliberately just to show how they'd prepared for it. Each team had backup systems we'd never even heard of. They could breathe comfortably in hard vacuum, see perfectly in total darkness. I got to witness their hand-to-hand capabilities personally. Fired my plasma rifle at a human point-blank range. They actually dodged, plasma fire. Moved like nothing I'd ever seen, then disarmed me with a move that looked more like a dance than combat. But here's the real kicker. They started giving us pointers, mid-fight, actual combat advice. Good trigger discipline, but try adjusting your stance. Nice attempt at a feint, but telegraph it less, like some kind of twisted combat instruction course. The explosives we'd planted, they gathered them all up, made a display of diffusing some, improving the detonator designs on others, turned it into an impromptu demolitions class, even asked Krex for his opinion on some of the modifications. By the end, we weren't even fighting anymore, just sitting there watching in numb fascination as they demonstrated exactly how outclassed we were. They showed us recordings of our own setup, pointing out every mistake, every missed opportunity, not to humiliate us. They genuinely wanted us to learn. "This," their commander said, "is why we let you escape the facility. Needed to test our new pursuit protocols in real conditions. Your team provided excellent data points." My membrane shifted to the color of dawning comprehension. That's when we finally understood. We hadn't been running from them. We'd been participating in the most elaborate training exercise in human military history. Every move we'd made, every trick we'd tried had been recorded, analyzed, and incorporated into their training programs. They even gave us performance reviews, actually rated our evasion techniques, combat tactics, and survival skills. Offered job recommendations for private security firms. Like we'd just completed some kind of advanced combat course instead of running for our lives. I leaned back in my chair, watching the impact of my story ripple through the rookies like a shockwave. The Praxis scales had shifted to the pale color of fear, while the Nexari's fins had completely stopped their usual prismatic display. So now you know why no self-respecting mercenary takes contracts against human special forces anymore. Those survival statistics you see in the databases, they're not what you think. 100% survival rate doesn't mean we won. It means they deliberately kept us alive for training purposes. The bartender nodded slowly, cleaning a glass with one tentacle while the others mixed drinks. Heard they've actually started a rating system. The better you do against their teams, the higher your market value becomes as a security consultant. Exactly, I clicked my mandibles in agreement. The Crimson Talons? We're listed as provided advanced training scenarios Class 3. Like some kind of twisted recommendation letter. Companies actually hire us specifically because we survived an encounter with human special forces. But here's the real punchline. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. Since our little training exercise, 17 other mercenary groups have gone up against human spec ops teams. Know what happened? The humans had already adapted their tactics based on what they learned from us. Each encounter was shorter than the last. The Nexari rookie found his voice, but surely with enough preparation. Kid, you don't get it. Every time someone faces them, win or lose, the humans get better. They learn, adapt. That group that hit them last cycle lasted 6 hours. The one before that, 12. Us? We managed 3 weeks, and that's only because they were letting us run. These days, the smarter mercenary outfits actually pay for training with human instructors. Better to learn from them willingly than become another case study in their combat manuals. Did you know they wrote an entire textbook based on our escape attempts, Multi-Species Combat Psychology, a practical analysis? It's required reading in their advanced training programs. The bar had filled up during my story, but the usual rowdy atmosphere was subdued. I noticed several veteran mercenaries nodding grimly. They'd either heard the stories or lived through similar experiences. The worst part, the absolute worst part, the humans consider it all perfectly normal. They treat combat like a science experiment, warfare like a research project. Every engagement is a learning opportunity. Every opponent is a chance to improve. I gestured to the rookie's datapad, still displaying that tantalizing contract. So go ahead, take that job if you want, but understand what you're signing up for. Best case scenario, you become their next training exercise. They'll study your tactics, analyze your techniques, and add everything they learn to their combat databases. And if you survive, which you probably will, because dead mercenaries can't provide feedback on their training methods, you'll spend the rest of your career looking over your shoulder, jumping at shadows, wondering if that strange reflection is really a reflection, or if a human in adaptive camouflage is about to tap you on the shoulder and critique your defensive posture. The Praxi quietly reached over and deleted the contract listing. Smart move, kid. You want my professional advice? Stick to contracts against normal opponents, pirates, smugglers, corporate security. But if you ever see a job involving humans, especially their special forces, run fast, run far, and don't stop running. I finished my drink and stood up, my old battle wounds protesting. Because if you don't, well, best case scenario, you'll end up like me. Retired, drinking away your pride, warning the next generation about the species that turned warfare into a teaching opportunity. Oh, and one more thing. I turned back at the door, my chromatophores shifting to warning red. If you ever hear human laughter during a combat operation, just surrender. Trust me, it's less embarrassing than having your own tactics explained to you while they're kicking your tail across 3 star systems. The rookies nodded solemnly. Around the bar, I noticed several other mercenaries quietly closing their contract listings. Good. Maybe they'd learn from our mistakes. The humans certainly had. As I stepped out into the neon-lit street, I couldn't help but chuckle. Somewhere out there in some high-tech training facility, a new batch of human Special Forces recruits was probably studying recordings of our encounter, learning, adapting, preparing, and I bet they're still laughing.